There is another one coming.
There's a man.
What's it?
Oh, someone, hey, you know what? I'm having a party too. Look, I'm having a live stream party with this one. Come on, everyone.
Hey!
Say
What
hi.
a cutie. What a cutie.
Say hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Say hi, Nicole.
I'm Nicole.
Oh. All right, we're gonna have to go. We're gonna go. You go play. You go read a Sid Banks book, okay? We'll be right over there. Okay, good. Jack, you're on here. Let me unmute you. Okay, what are you saying?
I said, what are the four of you doing together? What a treat. Wow.
We just need to listen to you.
We met in Copenhagen to just listen to you and see you and Nicole. So there you go.
Oh, that's so cool.
So nice. Great.
Yeah, it's nice to see all four of you.
Great to see you.
Not to mention the rest of you who are on the call. Don't mean to ignore you here.
Yeah, no disrespect, but for all you guys that didn't bring a party, it's not. You guys are cool. But oh man, we'll give it a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started. Here, let me just. I'm gonna pause it for a minute. All right, well, we're gonna get started as people are trickling in. So for those that are not aware, I'm sure everyone here is aware, but we have two amazing teachers of the principles here that are gonna share what they've seen and their wisdom with us. We have Miss Nicole Beasley as well as Jack Pransky on the call. If you guys want to wave, there they are. And I'm assuming everyone that's on this call already has an idea about who you guys are, but if they don't know, can you guys just briefly say a little bit about yourself? And I also want to add a second question to that is, being from a psychotherapy background, how did you know that what you discovered was actually more profound than what traditional psychotherapy has to offer, if that's a fair question to ask? How did you know that? So first, a little introduction, and then you guys can take it from there.
Well, he must be talking to you.
He's definitely talking to you, Jack.
I have no psychiatry background whatsoever. No psychotherapy background whatsoever. I came into this through prevention, and it's just kind of amazing, how it happened, because it just all happened serendipitously, one would think, but apparently I was called to see something deeper. I was always going about my business thinking that prevention happened from the outside in. We would give information to people, and we would build supports, and we would teach skills, and we would try to change conditions in the external world. And all of that was for the purpose of helping people kind of come out of themselves in a way and bring out the best in them. But we were doing it from the outside in. I had no idea that the everything that was the best of them was inside them already, and that all we needed to do was help them get out of their own way, and it would be there for everyone to see. So it was really a wrench for me to bump into Sid Banks and Roger Mills and
Jack, we might have lost you for a minute. Can you guys hear Jack, or did it paused? Okay. So let's see. Jack, if you can hear me, you may have to turn off your video for a minute and see if I can get you back on. They look very deep in thought, which is really good, because this is kind of what we wanted to happen, but Jack, can you hear me? Let's see. All right. Little technical error. As you guys are waiting, you can go ahead and watch Michael fall shirtless on top with his hat on. As you guys are waiting, go ahead and, okay, say hello to him. There he is. Look at that. All right, let's try to get Jack back on for a minute. Let's see where he's at. Where did he go? You might have. Let's see if we can get him back on.
Introduce everybody to Nicole, because I don't think that most people are familiar with her. This is Dr. Nicole Beasley. She's the one with the psychotherapy background. And so I'll just let you speak about that.
Okay, so Amir, you started with a really big question and kind of a complicated question to answer, I'd say. So I trained at very traditional places. So I got my PhD at Berkeley, and it certainly wasn't a spiritual kind of training. But I think, as Sid says, that truth comes in many doors. There are many different words. And so there was something very beautiful and true about learning the scientific method and healing through that lens. But what has always bothered me about psychology in general is that we reify the problem through the ideas itself. That there is a problem sort of supports, the notion that there is a problem supports the symptoms. So the first person I ever met who didn't think that way was a Buddhist monk. And she pointed me in the direction of, there is no problem. There really is no problem. So even, you know, a person who might show up with really intense symptoms, and psychology would say, well, there is a biological difference. She was profoundly out of the box in saying, this is not real. And through studying with her, I eventually stumbled on the principles, and then worked with someone for 13 months. And so to me, everything that's true about the principles, in some ways, I'd already heard through different words. And it's a beautiful lens. And there are many beautiful lenses.
Thank you. That was actually beautiful. And on that, going with what you just said, I wanted to mention something that I noticed in your book, Jack. His new book, can you guys see this? Hope for All, that just came out.
I didn't even tell him to market that.
Yeah, no, I'm not even trying to market it. But I do want to give a shout out to someone very important, Miss Eden Rose August Rain, who made the cover of this book, right? You gave her 2 words, and off those 2 words she came up. What were those 2 words?
Let's see, what were they? Community and hope.
Yep, community and hope, and she ended up coming up with this beautiful drawing. But I wanted to mention something. Maybe you guys can both tell me a little bit about
13,
this.
by the way.
That's right, 13 years old.
Yeah.
Eden Rose August Rain. Check this Zoom call out. You're mentioned a few times. I noticed something in the first story in the book is Helen. Okay, and this is something, I don't know if you did it on purpose, but she was talking about some of the traumatic incidents that happened, and you would have in little, like, what's it called? Those little quote thingies. You would have laugh at, like, she would say something like, my husband would leave me and come back and I would have a breakdown, and then she would have laugh at the end, right? And at first I went, you know, that's an interesting thing. She's talking about something that should be traumatic, but you emphasize at the end that she's actually laughing about it. And I think that's something really, really important, because we are told in my experience that when you go back and talk about something really traumatic, it should be still traumatic for you. But many times in the book, you've pointed out that she can look back and see it from a different light. Do you guys see something that is actually worthwhile looking and seeing that? Like, what about that is, why did you put that in there in the first place, that the fact that she was laughing about it?
because she did.
Okay, fair enough.
And I was trying to capture the interview really as it was. But here's the thing about going back into the past. The only problem with going back into the past is if it lowers our spirits. If it doesn't lower our spirits, there's no problem with going back into the past. But, you know, very often when people have had traumas in the past and they talk about them, they tend to revisit those traumas and get that, you know, really terrible feeling that they had back then. And that doesn't do anybody any good, because it kind of makes the mind be like a clenched fist, you know. And when that happens, you can't really, your mind isn't relaxed enough to get new insights. So that's the whole idea. And if one can laugh at what happened to them in the past and they see it in a completely new light now, being able to laugh at the past is a wonderful thing.
Brilliant. And Nicole, I think we have our first tough question that came from Monique. She said, in psychotherapy, the environment I'm in, if you tell people their problems are not real and made up, they will walk out the door. So I'm guessing you don't have your clients come in and you tell them, oh, your traumatic incidents aren't real. Of course, I'm guessing, I'm going to let you speak. What do you do?
Well, there's no reason for me to pass them an idea. This isn't real, this is real. Instead, what I'm interested in doing is just being with them where they are and listening deeply so that I might hear something that helps them hear an insight. Because I think what we would all say, and many psychotherapists have said this, that insight comes from within. And so the change people need is hearing something from within themselves. So a certain kind of listening is really conducive to that, instead of telling people.
Yeah, so it's, oh, go ahead, Jack.
Well, it's really all about listening. You know, if we're involved in working with someone and our listening tells us that it's important to dip into the past with this person, even though we have in our mind that, you know, going back into the past, there's no answers there. If our listening tells us to dip into the past, we would be fools not to dip into the past.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of organic following moment by moment rather than a wedding to any particular idea. And I would be hurt as a client of a principles practitioner or of a psychotherapist if someone told me their idea, you know, I'm going to sit with you and then you're going to tell me how it is. That wouldn't feel helpful to me either. And form and the formless are such a complicated dance. So it's not the case that form isn't real. There really are neurotransmitters. There is a brain, there are brain differences. So it's not that form doesn't matter. It's that our ideas of form are more limited than we would see through the formless.
And yet when we're able to, if this is even possible, step out of the form into the formless, we ourselves discover how real our problems really are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, I would never tell anybody your problems aren't real.
Mm-hmm.
But they might be able to see that for themselves. Like how real are they really?
Mm-hmm.
Piggybacking off of what you guys said, what do you guys mean? What are you saying when form and formless? What are you guys talking about?
You brought it up.
Mm-hmm. So in the lens of the principles, thought is form, but thoughts are form, or the big T, thought, is form, but the mind is in the formless. So just talking from my own experience, there is a presence here, an experience of being that takes form. And to me, thought in a small, like even a cognitive sense of thought, is a quickly moving form, just like a tree. It's something and it quickly changes. Trees take longer to change. Does that make sense, Amir, or is it kind of unclear?
I want to clarify something. The power of thought is formless.
Yeah.
What we use it to create thoughts. As soon as a thought materializes, that's form.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we're going to delve into the spiritual nature of the principles, we really want to take a look at what does this formless gift of the power of thought give us. When Sid first, I was reflecting on this a little earlier. When he first came out with his audio tape to those who were involved in the three principles at that time, and he first specified what the three principles were, he called them divine mind, divine consciousness, and divine thought. Now, it's very easy for us, when we shorten it to mind, consciousness, and thought, to forget all about the divine part. What does that really mean? And so, actually, I don't know whether you mentioned this or not, but we're about to have a little training journey retreat kind of thing in Peru, where we're going to delve into the nature, the spiritual nature of what these principles really mean. And for us to all reflect together on what does divine thought really mean? What does divine consciousness really mean? What does divine mind really mean? You know, we start getting into realms that Sid saw with his own eyes, and the rest of us may have gotten little glimpses of from time to time, but what does it really mean? What does it really give us? You know, it's like you can never get to the bottom of this.
I think that you hit on a really good point. Is it becomes like I've been in the principles long enough where it almost becomes dismissive. I forget the power of the impact of when you said divine. I think it is because I'm so used to it. When someone says it, I go, oh, it's mind, consciousness, and thought. Oh, it's the three. And it's almost like it's just this, but it's not just this. It's this. Like this is it. And you can speak about it forever. I am going to talk about the Peru retreat you're having, but moving forward to that question, then, when people that have now I can say either have been in the principles for the long time and kind of forgot its impact, or someone who's new, what is the direction they should be looking into then, if they want to have a deeper understanding of the principles?
I'm not following your question, Amir.
If someone is new to the principles or has been in it for a long time and they just kind of forgot the impact of the principles, what's a good reminder? What's a good direction to look into to see its power, to see its brilliance again?
Oh, okay. For me, I'll let Nicole speak for herself. Where do all the answers really lie? The answers really lie, like for me, the answers really lie deep within myself, in my spiritual essence, my pure consciousness, connected to the oneness of all things, which is divine mind. And to look in that direction, there's such, first of all, it's really hard to talk about, but there's such richness there. And to know that that's where the answers are, it just kind of raises the question of, we would know all the answers for ourselves and for everybody else if we are able to totally listen deeply enough to divine mind. Go ahead.
So I'm not sure that I would know the answers for everyone else if I listened deeply enough to divine mind, because so my own experience is that the answers are definitely in mind, and that I'm given like little breadcrumbs, a little trail to follow. And in a way, listening to my actual life in form gives me direction as to what mind is telling me. So it's kind of this conversation between the form and the formless. I see something in form, I go in and rest into mind. I come back into form, I rest back into mind like a wave. And so if I wasn't being guided by mind, I would be lost in form.
And instead, we tend to be guided by our little minds.
Yeah, by the ego, that's true.
Yeah, and that's always dangerous.
The great news about that is when I'm guided by my ego, I always have a hard fall. Like life is such a beautiful teacher. She's constantly showing me, not that way, not that way. And I just have to listen, which is a learning in and of itself.
Yeah, that you actually answered my next question, is how do you know when you're following wisdom versus ego? And sounds to me that you get guidance over and over again, and it's something that constantly reminds us if that's correct. And maybe you can expand on that.
That feels very true for me, Amir. And I'm also suffering when I'm guided by my ego. If I pay attention to the feeling that's rising in the moment, it's the feeling of constriction. I often am in a feeling of constriction. So I'll notice that thought is pouring into my mind that is not coming from wisdom. And it's just a noticing that that's not the thought I want to follow.
I think this would be a perfect moment for the example we were talking about
the kids,
the cliff and the birds.
Yeah. So Jack is referring to, I'm noticing that I'm trying to work on something with my kids where I can see that I'll get irritated with them. And so I was kind of interested. And so this is an example of the form and the formless. In form, I see I'm irritated. I'm in a relationship and there's like a contracted energy. And so then I got quiet and went back toward mind. For me, I just pray, God, help me see, help me understand the way. For me, that's how I think of mind. And I was shown, I'm learning how to climb a rock, like be a rock climber. And whenever my attention is not on the feeling of my hand on the rock, I fall off the rock. And what causes my attention to go away is I'm surrounded by these squawking birds. And they have so many important things to say. You're getting it wrong. This isn't good enough. You should be this way. You shouldn't do it that way. You know, what do they think? Blah, 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 blah. And anytime my attention is more in the noise of the bird, I'm not actually feeling the sensation of the rock. The sensation of the rock for me is the sensation of mind. I can pay attention to the feeling of mind in my form. And when I'm there, the birds don't pull me off the cliff. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I remember when there's this mountain in the state of Maine called Mount Katahdin, and at the very top of it, there's a place called the Razor's Edge. And I went up there with my daughter at one point, and when you get to the Razor's Edge, you have to have all your wits about you, because you're kind of hanging on to this place that is very narrow. And you just, and the wind was howling, you know, the wind was blowing, and it was, if you had any thoughts that were extraneous to the, like your hands, your feet, and the cliff, you know, you would be in serious trouble. And it's so easy to so all of a sudden focus on how horrible the wind is, you know, and how, you know, it could blow you right off of there if you weren't careful. And if you did that, you'd be in big trouble, because you're letting yourself just be caught by, in that case, the wind, and in Nicole's case, the birds yapping at her. You know?
I mean, both you guys, that was a beautiful analogy, and people mentioned that as well. And I would have to say, with the analogy, what I see with the principles is the difference between a cliff is we get to get back up again over and over again. In other words, we get a second chance and a third chance. I think that's when I see the hope for all. When I saw that in your title of your book, that's what I see. I work with people at the recovery center, and they believe they've fallen, but the good news is we're back and fresh and whole again. Is that what you see with people as well?
Yeah, I think that it's a beautiful dance in the form and the formless. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you fall, that it's a tracking in the mind. But the falling is also part of how you learn to stay on the cliff. I can rejoice in the fall because it helps me feel, oh, you know, it's like a teaching. So instead of seeing it as something like I failed, it's like an awareness bell at the monastery. It's like it helps you come back home.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And we can't break here. We can't break because what breaks isn't real.
That's why it's an illusion.
I can feel broken.
Yeah, we can use our power of thought. We can use this incredible divine gift of the power of thought to feel broken. What a gift. We can use it for anything. And we do. But to be able to use this incredible divine gift of thought to connect with universal mind, which is who we really are, you know, connected to the oneness of all things. When any of us does that, we are in a state of pure peace, love, and wisdom. And that can, and the fact that that can happen to us at any moment, no matter how in the dumps we are, that's hope for all.
Hmm.
Beautiful. We have a question from one of the members. Are you guys open to a
Yeah,
question?
great.
Okay, Mr. Carlson, if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I can unmute myself.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm very fine. Hello, Jack.
Is that
Good to
you,
see you.
Ivan?
Yes, it's me. Hello.
The coach.
Yes.
Ivan drives around. Ivan drives around in a taxi cab, or at least he did last time I talked to him. And he coaches people from the taxi cab. So he's the coach.
That's so cool.
Yes, I'm not driving so much cab these days. Retired and so on. It makes me ponder a whole lot, and I think I've broken the secret with our sixth sense. You know, we are talking about how we have the sixth sense. We have the feeling, the taste, the smell, the hearing, the eyes, the five senses. And through those senses, we are creating our world via thought.
Yeah.
There's always a thought between what we see and what we hear and our experience of life. And then we have that sixth sense. And you said just some minutes ago who we really are. In my world, how I see the sixth sense, it's the real me talking to me. Who I really am is talking through my sixth sense.
Yeah.
Can you say something about that?
I would agree. I mean, I think what you said was beautiful, and I'm not sure I have much to add to that. It's perfect. The way we make sense of it for ourselves is the only thing that counts.
Yeah.
I would agree with Jack totally that it's so beautiful that you see that so clearly and are connected that way.
Yeah.
And you have that knowing when you hear that voice, it is you.
Yeah.
Yes, it is you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is
who I really am.
Each one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the place where I feel like I get lost is when I forget that I am not thought. Because it's the noise, the birds are in thought. They aren't in that quiet place. But it's a new thing for me to see the birds as part of the evolution, that it's not a mistake, there's nothing wrong, it's not something to evolve out of, but they in a way, they grow the awareness of what I'm not.
I'm having a thought right now that the sun is getting you right in the eyes. Is that true?
That's true, but I don't mind it.
Oh, okay, great. Either that or she's really got an incredible mask on.
Yes, it's creating a
even
two-face, Nicole. The half is in the sun and the other half is in the shadow. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to mention, we got to be careful saying everything's an illusion. People aren't going to be paying for your cab fares. They're like, well. So does anyone else? Thank you again.
Thank you, Ivan. Great to see you again.
Does anyone else want to jump in and ask while we have Nicole and Mr. Jack on the call?
While people are getting their nerve up or whatever, I just noticed that Candy Mayer is on this call, and Candy is one of those people. She was actually featured in Somebody Should Have Told Us. And it reminds me that what keeps me going and alive in this business is when I see people's lives change right in front of my face. And Candy is one of those people who is just one of the poster children for what the three principles, what understanding the three principles can do for people. And I've probably embarrassed the hell out of her right now, but I just wanted to give her a shout out for that.
Beautiful. And we do have a few questions. Sia, would you like to get on? And then Fiona will be right after. So I'll unmute you.
Thank you. Let me get the video going as well. Oh, hello there. Thank you very much for this.
No.
Right. I was just browsing through the missing link, the book, and something just made me caught my eye, which was when Sid says, consciousness is a gift of awareness.
Consciousness is what about awareness?
It's a gift of awareness.
Yes, a gift of awareness. Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought, if you don't mind speaking to that, what the difference is between the two and how one is born out of the other.
Well, I'll say something about how I see it. And this is just my own view, you know, so you can take it with a grain of salt, but what would divine consciousness be? You know, so the gift of awareness as a divine gift wouldn't, I asked this of myself, you know, like, wouldn't that mean full awareness of all things, full awareness of the one? That's the potential for all of us, is that we can fall into this divine consciousness that allows us to see full awareness of the one. And that, it's just an incredible thought that it just amazes me that we are living in such a narrow world. Like, given that, what is our world that we live in compared with what we could live in? And I don't mean that it's something that, you know, we should beat ourselves up about not living there, but I mean, it just, for me, it just opens up the possibility. Like, as much as I understand about mind, consciousness, and thought, what I understand is nothing. It's so tiny. I mean, it's been enough to have my life change and for other people's lives to change. But that potential for what we could see that we don't see is endless. And, you know, it's something that we can never get too cocky about, that we know something. Because compared to that, we know nothing. Or very, very, very little. Do you have something to add?
No.
Okay.
May I follow up with another question?
Yes.
So would it then, in a way, mean that awareness relates to the world we live in, and consciousness is a potential to step it up to another dimension, higher level.
So what comes to me is that I'm not sure. Consciousness shifts for me through awareness. Does it for you?
Well, I can't say yes because I'm not sure how I would define awareness to fit into this equation.
Yeah.
I might have a little more, I don't know, materialistic kind of like view on awareness. Just sense of
So this
thoughts.
is an example to me that to answer your question, I would really have to listen to your mind. You know, I would really have to ask you a lot of questions about how you're thinking about awareness and consciousness. And then through listening to you really deeply, I would see more what you're really saying and how it's connected for you, because you have an internal experience of those two words.
Yes.
So that's where I'm landing right now.
If we see awareness on a continuum, like we can be aware of what our thinking is telling us. We can be aware of the fact that we think. We can be aware of
The feeling of sun on our face.
the feeling of sun on Nicole's face. We can be aware of the tree outside this window. We can be aware of the light shining on the leaves on the tree outside this window. There is so much potential there to be aware of. And we will be aware of whatever our thoughts bring us in the moment. And yet there is so much more to possibly be aware of. So if even if I have the thought, I'd like to become more aware of my, the environment that I'm in. Like I want to get out of my own thinking and just be aware of what surrounds me. That thought will allow me to be aware on a higher level of consciousness. Or if I have a thought, wow, I'm just cluing into the vastness of what universal mind is, or my tiny little idea of what universal mind is, which is automatically limiting. I am aware of that. And yet I can open myself up even more to just kind of like, to use an expression that I got from Nicole, to fall back into the formless and just have a completely different experience. And then I'm aware of that.
Thank you.
Well, as Jack says that, what comes to me is that there is an important role from within this little form called Nicole. It seems that grace plays an important role in the shifting of my awareness and consciousness. And what role grace plays would be a very interesting conversation for all of us to have. You know, it's like the little I is not driving the ship. And yet it's important, the willingness, it certainly is important. So it's not like the little I does nothing. But there is a, you know, Amir, you probably know this from working with people in recovery. People can show up with 110% of everything they have to give, and the birds can start to squawk and we fall off the mountain, right? And there is a grace in being able to have the thought to pay attention to the feeling of the rock. Something that's coming from beyond what I can choose and do. Do you know what I mean by that, Amir?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's something very beautiful, this beautiful dance. And it's hard to put into words, but it seems so important, especially for self-compassion and deep-hearted understanding of just the beautiful and complicated journey of learning to stay on the rock. That waking up is this big, and there's something in that about consciousness and awareness to me, and it reminded me of what you were saying.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So I'm gonna, man, this, I wish we could do this for 3 more hours. We can't, actually we can, because you guys are having a retreat, but, and we're gonna get to that, because I do want you guys, I do have a couple questions about that. I'm gonna have, I think Fiona had a question. We'll go to hers, and then if time permits, we'll go to another one, but I do wanna finish up with what you guys are up to. So.
Okay.
Miss Fiona.
Fiona, hi Fiona.
Unmute yourself.
Hi, Jack. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole. We haven't met, but hi.
Hi.
So I've kind of got 2 questions in one. I've got a new client that's contacted me. I'm a transformational coach, and I used to be a psychologist. She has severe depression, probably the deepest I've ever seen somebody in depression. And I told her a little bit about the principles in the consultation. And her response today, the consultation was yesterday, her response today was she's come away feeling it was her fault. So, which of course I did not say to her. So there's 2 questions in one really. Have you got any advice for dealing with somebody that's very deep in depression? And the second one, like, has anyone ever said to you, you know, that they've taken the understanding of the 3 principles as being their fault?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to answer, or you want me to?
Go.
So I have so much compassion for both of you in that situation. I think that one of the birds in my mind when I'm depressed is it's my fault. And so, you know, it will suck anything into that narrative. Well, it's your fault because she's saying that you could change your thinking through, you know, if you just let go of your thinking, then blah, 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 as if it's a direct. So my suggestion is to rest with her into the pain instead of trying to help her get out of it through an understanding. And this is the hardest thing for me too when I'm sitting with my clients, is to be with and wait for mind to show me a tiny door. Being with is, tell me about how hard it is. You know, no one's in there with her. No one's in her mind with all those noisy birds. And so what I find is when I'm listening, there'll be just a little thought, and I don't have to talk about the principles, or because sometimes I want to help people get out, but I know I can't. The only thing that will take me out when I'm depressed is mind. So when I'm listening, What I'm hoping for is a kind of quiet within myself that then leads to an insight. Oh, I don't know why, but this is what I'm hearing. You need to hear. Rather than an understanding.
See, it's very easy in the principles to get trapped by what we hear. You know, so it's like, you know, what I mentioned before about you don't take people back into the past. You don't take people into their pain. Well, you don't unless wisdom tells you through really deep listening that that's where you should go. And it's very, very important to meet people where they're at, because sometimes our meeting them where they're at allows their mind to quiet down, just in the sense that, oh, this person understands me or understands where I'm at. He or she gets it. And then they're much more open to hearing the new.
And so Fiona, what Jack said is so much better than what I said. Because what he said was, oh, just listen, you'll be guided, but don't try. And, you know, like my idea of going into the pain might be totally wrong from what you hear in the moment with her.
Sure.
So that's so, yeah. But the birds, you know, they just pull all that content into another way that you're wrong.
Yeah, you're trying to hold on to the cliff and they're pecking away at you.
Right.
See if you can still hold on to that, you know.
Right. How did that feel? How did that land for you, Fiona?
I think what I would certainly deep listen with her, and I'm not into bringing people into the past. That's why I gave up being a psychologist. And that was
Yeah.
No disrespect to anyone on this call if you're a psychologist.
Yeah.
I think I'll get her to ground and I'll do some energy work with her and wait for that silence, wait for her to connect more deeply and truly with herself. And see if space opens up for a conversation and just see how it goes, really.
And I'll just add one thing to that. It's really a wonderful thing to be able to, this is a misnomer, but give hope. I don't mean give it, but I mean help her see that there is hope.
Yeah.
Like we're never stuck where we are. We think we're stuck where we are. It sure looks like we're stuck where we are because consciousness is doing its job perfectly, making us totally feel stuck where we are. But to know that we never are, because number one, thoughts change. And number two, we have this place that we've been talking about within us that is beyond all that, that is who we really are. And when we're able to feel it, we are lifted from what we think our problems are.
And all of that can be communicated without any words.
Yeah.
Without any teaching. Through presence.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fiona. And I do want to add, one of the things that's helped me with working with Jack and some of the other teachers is when I'm in my head and I get on a call with Jack or whoever I've worked with, they don't buy into me freaking out. They fundamentally know I'm okay. And sometimes that's enough for me to pop out. Not them trying to go, well, I'm here to fix you for the next hour. Jack gets on a call and says, hey, bud, how are you? What's going on? Let's talk. And it's just like, gives me a moment to go, well, wait a minute. Aren't you supposed to be helping me? But he never comes to help me. And that sounds strange. Like he's supposed to come to help me, so you think, but he's not to help me, because if he knows I'm fundamentally okay, then he'll just wait for me to see that for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been one of the biggest gifts, Jack, that you've given me. So I just wanted to give that as just as a side note.
Thank you, Amir. It's actually because I know there's no hope for you.
So hope, your new book's gonna be Hope for All Except Amir. Thank you. That's perfect. You know, we're out of time. So I was gonna get another question in, but I think I'm gonna end it at this, because that was a beautiful way to end this webinar. But you two are such a dynamic duo. I for the first time, Nicole, this has been my first time in being introduced to you, but you guys, it is like the perfect pair, like chocolate and ice cream. It's just perfect. I just wanted to, I was trying to come up with something, but.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah, all right, good. And how can people know about you guys? What are you guys up to? I know you guys are doing a retreat. I do want to ask you, first and foremost, why there? And what do you guys expect to see from your retreat? Or what are you hoping for?
Well, there were a lot of questions in there.
Yes.
Why there is because the opportunity presented itself. A fellow from Peru who runs spiritual journeys in Peru happened to get turned on to the principles somewhere along the way. And he read my book and he got in touch with me and he said, would I like to do something in Peru? And since Machu Picchu was always on my bucket list, I absolutely jumped at the chance. Then, as we were talking about it more, we thought, wouldn't it be a great idea, since Peru is known to be, at least parts of Peru are known to be a very spiritual place, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing to be able to delve into the spiritual nature of the three principles in a place that people think is really spiritual? And so combining those two things together, going on this kind of a journey where we go to the ancient ruins and sacred sites and up into what I hear are the gorgeous Andes Mountains. And it's just the whole thing together seems to be a place that is, I'm so excited about it, I must say, you know.
I'm also very excited about it. And I would say that why Peru hasn't occurred to me at all. It's more like there's a call and so I'm going. And I think that something magical will happen because there's mind. So we'll see. You know, that's kind of the amazing thing. It's like, ooh, what will unfold? I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. So but something magical.
Yeah, I you know, it's kind of hard to expect without having any expectations, but I have high hopes that it will be an amazing experience. And we still have a few openings.
What are the dates?
The dates are something around March 12th or 11th or 12th through the 19th or 20th, somewhere around there.
I'll put a link down. So. Okay,
great.
Because, yeah. You just do the principles. I'll do the organizing. We'll make sure everyone gets there.
I'd love
right
to hear that.
I'll put that down for you guys on the links. And yeah, if you guys can go, I'm sure it'll be an absolutely amazing. I mean, just this hour was absolutely amazing. So having more of that, it can't get better than that. So with that being said, any final words, Jack and Nicole? Anything you'd like to say to the group or just in general before we say our goodbyes?
Thank you so much, Amir. It was really, really nice to sit and be able to be with you. I wish that we had been able to talk to everybody. It would have been nice.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. It's really nice to see all of you. I know some of you, and I'm so happy to see you. And new people for me is always wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Amir, again for allowing this to happen.
Absolutely. And then my final question is, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Would you guys be willing to do this again if we have interest? I'm sure that I'm kind of framing it because I knew there's going to be interest, but would you guys be willing to come back again?
Probably. I'm going to be in the process of moving from Florida to Charlottesville, Virginia. And so from about now until I arrive in Peru, I'm going to be pretty much out straight. But we'll see what we can do.
Okay, well, I'll take that as a yes. So thank you so much for both of you guys. And on that note, have a wonderful week, you guys. This was absolutely brilliant as always. And thank you so much for everyone that joined us.
Thank you.
Give them a big, let's put it on gallery view and give them a big wave, virtual hug, virtual kisses. And the party's still going strong down there. Look at, they're still going strong. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.